last things I want to cover here before we get into a full-blown program on groundwork. Groundwork really needs a whole program in itself, at least one, and maybe many of them, because it's very complex. There's groundwork for self-defense, groundwork for MMA, groundwork for sport. It all varies a little bit. But one of the main things I want to cover is how to break down somebody in a faster, more power version for the street. All ground fighting is based on ground position control. We understand that. But many times, from almost any position, when there's a scramble on the ground, you've taken the guy down from a headlock, he releases the headlock, he turns, whatever. It's instinctive for people to turn onto their stomach and push themselves off the ground. Okay, this is a standard position that you're going to find yourself, whether you're doing this for street self-defense, for sport, whatever. It's so common, in fact, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that there's lots and lots of ways to attack the person, assuming that he's a trained guy. And once again, we're leaving out the simpler, more direct approach that we should learn first because it speeds things up. And this approach is not as technical, meaning that a trained guy can maybe take advantage of it. But again, our self-defense begins with the premise that you have a much larger, much stronger, more aggressive opponent, but not a trained one. And your training is what's going to compensate for that. So for whatever reason, I'm trying to arm lock him, or we just had a scramble, and he turns over like this. The higher he gets built up like this, the easier it's going to be for him to stand up. And once again, when we're talking about a trained guy, it's pretty easy for him to power, excuse me, not a trained guy, but a huge guy, to power himself off the ground. Now, when you back down like this, most people in Jiu-Jitsu understand that we want to hook in, and there's a lot of things we can do to control him. But it takes a lot of practice. Practice that you should put in, practice that you should be doing. But in the meantime, you need a more simpler, direct approach. Now, from here, when he's already up this high, it's hard to get his wrist. All these things you're taught are good. But let's start with something that's so much simpler and more effective to start with. Now, the drawback is every trained jiu-jitsu guy is taught not to put both arms over. You should be holding them like this or like this. That's all true, and it makes control a lot easier, but in the beginning, we're going to have to break that rule. Okay? The reason why you don't want both arms over is that he can easily grab your hand, and he puts one hand over here, for example. Now he's got both arms controlled. You're not going to be able to break him down. You need to have your hands here. But if we use his head as a lever like this, and I pull up on his chin, and I kick my hips back like this, it's much simpler to put the guy down.